I like to win and I like to compete, but we have to win and compete while delivering results. So it's not smoke and mirrors. What you say you're going to do, you have to do.
And we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Hangout, everyone. Thank you for joining us this week for the second time. I'm Adrian Danila, your host. I want to start by thanking our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. They're Kairos and Coastal Painting Contractors. With this being said, and we are live. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Hangout, everyone. Thank you for joining us this week for the second time. I'm Adrian Danila, your host. I want to start by thanking our sponsors for making this broadcast possible. They're Kairos and Coastal Painting Contractors. With this being said, I'm going to turn it over to my co-host, Chris Moreno. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Adrian. We're bi-coastal today. So coming at you from Atlanta in the studio here, but we've got Richard Friedman out on the West Coast in beautiful sunny California, and was really fortunate enough to, I've gotten to know Richard over the last few years in the industry. It's really cool to meet up with him in person because he is someone, I can go into his background and, there's just a storied past working at Greystar. He came in through the Riverstone Residential acquisition and currently a managing director, client services, strategic partnerships. And we're going to go a little bit deeper into his work, his leadership, things he's learned over the years. But I think one of the coolest things is just how he makes you feel. And he really lights up a room. So not to make you blush, but it's really in all honesty because he's always got a smile on his face and he comes at you with guns a-blazing in a good way. So he makes you feel really well. But I will tell you that his history and knowledge of the industry is just unparalleled. I think he's very humble in the way he talks about it, is sharing these stories of other people that he's gotten to know over the years, being on multiple sides of the business. He's taken on this new role in the last year and a half to really grow the footprint of Greystar in the US. And they are the leaders in the multifamily management space. So he can dive in a little bit more of that. Prior to his current role, he spent about 15 years in the business development side in California. So really has an incredible background on pre-development, consulting, underwriting, market assessment, strategic planning. So for existing and then even potential assets under management. So yeah, without further ado, I want to welcome you, Richard. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Well, first off, it was great to meet up last week, but as we had so many people who came together, can you tell us a little bit about how you got into real estate? Did you have a plan to get into real estate or did you kind of fall into it?
I don't know if anyone really has a plan to fall into multifamily, maybe real estate. Grew up in Chicago, discovered Miami, went to the University of Miami, go Canes, back in 88 to 92. Discovered what warm weather was like just thoroughly enjoyed it, but I was studying marine science. As a sophomore, I was in RA for 2 years, and that really started. Schooling was going one direction, but even then, the parallels to multifamily and being in charge of a wing of students was going a different direction. That kind of led into the hotel business. And, one day I befriended the HR director at the Hyatt Regency Alicante in Orange County in Anaheim. And he said, you work way too hard and get paid too little to stay in the hotel business. That was the best piece of advice. And his wife worked for Oakwood Corporate Housing. Gosh, that turned into an assistant manager position with R&B Apartment Management, which was the third party side of Oakwood at the time. And my property management career started then.
Richard, from right then to your current role, would you like to share a few things about your current role with Greystar?
I've kind of done it all. I think with multifamily, people can come at it from different angles. So I certainly approached it from the operational side. So I started as an assistant manager, promoted to a community manager, was a senior manager, then was a regional, right? Was fortunate enough to continue to do well and was promoted to a vice president. And gosh, that goes into kind of when Riverstone started in 2006. And they said, you know what? Business is busy. Development is starting to boom. Owners want to renovate. They were talking to property managers for advice. Well, listen, our property managers and our regionals need to focus on the business of running that real estate. So they took a handful of us, the Elizabeth Dappers and the Christy Throms, and said, you're business leaders. We want you to just do business development. We just want you to do client services. And we were all operators, but we were operators that knew how to speak to clients. We understood the mechanics of running a property. We were good ambassadors of the brand. We knew what we were talking about. And they're really just like set us up not to fail. And that's how I started in client services. And that was 15 years. And then this past 16 months ago, they asked me to head into a strategic partnerships role, which is really a management consolidations and acquisitions role. So instead of helping owners buy properties, run properties in order for us to manage them, now it's like, why don't you go talk to companies that we could roll into our platform that would be accretive to our business, or talk to owners that have multiple management companies, and there's some benefits of consolidation. The terminology and the perspective of looking at real estate flipped a year and a half ago for me. And I will tell you, it took probably a good year for me to start feeling comfortable about, one, having these discussions, or two, how do you value a company versus how do you value what rents you can do based upon executing a repositioning. So I always laugh. Sometimes you need to have smarter people in the room with you for you to be successful. I have an analyst that is 27-year-old kid, and this guy's a rock star. I think the first call I got on, I maybe understood 50% of that call, but he could talk about multiples and numbers and algorithms and every financial modeling piece of the conversation. He ripped through it. And I'm like, I wish I knew now what he knows at his age. So it's kind of a fun role to be in now that I'm comfortable.
That's super cool. Surrounding yourself with great people. What has been, maybe some of the challenges and successes you've experienced in growing the property management business over the last few years?
That's an interesting question, because there's challenges that go with growth. Greystar is a growth company. Riverstone was a growth company. And what happens with growth is the environment's always changing. You have to be adaptable, whether it's systems or whether it's strategy. There's people changes, new people coming in. I mean, I haven't done a resume since 1996. Now, that could be because either they just can't get rid of me, or I just outlasted those that I didn't really care for. But I've always produced, and I've enjoyed the environment that I've been around. But someone early in my career said, it isn't the work that you do, it's the people that you surround yourself with. And sometimes having the responsibility of delivering for the people you work around is more important than that is your job satisfaction sometimes. But changing people, fear of unknown as you grow, there's just uncertainty as you step in out of your comfort zone. But I think the one thing that I learned through different, whether it's acquisitions, whether you're acquiring or being acquired, or just changes in career path, wherever you are, you must find your voice. Because if you don't have a voice, then you're just kind of adrift, right? So whatever you do, have a defensible position, be in the conversation versus just listening to the conversation. That's kind of what I've seen. Those are challenges, but how you measure success is different from every person. So, there's individual accomplishments, but I certainly like seeing the success of a team. I can certainly lead. I can certainly walk next to the team, and then I can push the team from behind. But as you go through a journey, success is certainly best when it's shared amongst others, without question.
Before going to my next question, I want to give a shout out to all of you that are watching us live. Send us a message right here, type a message in a box, let us know where you're watching from. And if you have questions for Richard, type them as well in a message box, in a comments box. We will be watching those and we will ask him questions in real time. Greystar is approaching 1 million units under management. This is like an unbelievable number. The next company over is like about a third of the size of Greystar. What would you say you attribute this amazing success of your company? What are some things that Greystar is doing that has become so hugely successful?
I think it starts at the top. Bob Faith wants to be the Apple of the multifamily industry. He's an innovator. He cares about people. He started something from scratch, has continued to be able to adapt the changing multifamily environment, the investment environment, and he's built a team with good people. And those good people, he allows them the rope to make good decisions. He still thinks Greystar, and I still think Greystar is a growth company. If you look at our 900,000 units or so under management, and we are global. I mean, we're in many, many countries, but the U.S. Property management is certainly the majority of that business. We're only on conventional business, maybe 5% market share out of the country. I just look at me and my new role, and I look at what clients, what companies, what owners should I be talking to? And there's probably 700 potential relationships that I can engage in, which represent another 12 million units. There's a lot of business out there. So while we might have the lion's share of what is management today, that pool is an ocean. People say you're so big, but if you look at the big picture out of all of the rental stock in the US, we're not that big. And people don't realize that.
It's pretty mind-blowing, but you have grown substantially in the last few years. I'm kind of curious, is there something that stands out? Like, is there an acquisition or a deal or maybe a story it's up to you if you want to name a name or not, that maybe stood out in your mind as you talked about developing these relationships?
Gosh, I mean, I'm a pretty competitive person. So I like to win and I like to compete, but we have to win and compete while delivering results. So it's not smoke and mirrors. What you say you're going to do, you have to do. In third-party management, we're on 30-day contracts. So if we're not delivering, might not be there for long. But through the growth of the company, probably the Alliance transaction was something that I'm most proud of. And that was difficult, right? Because that transaction happened in the middle of the pandemic. This reminds me of when Greystar acquired Riverstone and I was on the Riverstone side. We had no idea that was coming down the pipe. And when that hit, I mean, I think we were the second largest management company in the country, and Greystar was our main competitor. And then all of a sudden we got acquired instead of being the ones that acquire. So I've gone through acquisitions and transitions before, but to do a transition with the scale of what Greystar accomplished with Alliance was really mind-boggling. And I'm just going to relate it because I was specifically responsible for California at the time. Alliance was our big competitor. I mean, Tracy Bernetti and Tanya Decker. I mean, it was like this, either walking into a pitch or leaving a pitch. We knew we were crossing paths regardless, and uber competitive. But when that happened, you have to embrace the company that you're going to be working closely with. And as competitive as this industry is, we're all people, and you can still work well with people, even if you're in a competitive light. You always be humble, you always be personable, you always be polite, and you don't say garbage about people. Focus on your own business. But when that happened, I knew them through competition, but I needed to work with them in a different manner, and I couldn't do it face to face. And I'm a relational person. Relationships are what get me going versus just transactions. I'd rather know that person, what makes them tick, what things they like, things about their family. I probably overshare about my life and family with clients, but I think those forge bonds and make for better interaction between people. But to go through what we did with the entire Alliance team during a pandemic, not being able to see one another close by, having daily calls just to make sure that the process was going smooth. And listen, there's bumps along the road. What's smooth to one person is not smooth to the other, but the ability for us to come together and get aligned on vision and also be open to change, because it isn't change on just the company that is being acquired or that's joining you. It's also change for those that are the basis on what that company or those associates' experience is going to be. So really working through that and keeping that leadership team intact. The job we did, performance that we had with clients, there was a lot of cogs to the wheel that kept that train on the tracks. I'm probably most proud of that. We've grown significantly as an organization on how to execute transitions, but also how to be open to change on our own end. We don't know, we think we might have the right solution, but there's someone always out there that I think is a little bit smarter or may have already worked through that mousetrap that you can learn from.
Richard, I feel like in a position like yours, you are interviewing every day. You are being interviewed by potential clients. They're asking questions. They want to know what Greystar is going to do for them and maybe what Greystar can do for them that other companies can't. What are some concerns that your potential clients are expressing during the conversations about challenges that they're having, that they're trying to get resolved in this current environment? What are the things that keep them awake at night?
I think there's probably two things. One is the perception that we are so large that we're inaccessible. Again, we kind of talked about our market share within the US is minuscule compared to the whole market, but we have so many regional offices and leaders around the country that if someone is calling, for the most part, they're getting a call back pretty darn quick, certainly within a day, sometimes within minutes, right? And with technology today, with texting, whether it's our regional leaders, whether it's directors, whether it's RPMs, I mean, the thing that I'm most proud of is as we've grown, we really try to keep the load on the regional managers at a level that they can be accessible and invested in the real estate that they're charged to oversee. So accessibility to us and will they get lost in the shuffle is one concern that I think clients have. If you're just looking at the pure number side of how many units we manage. I mean, just because we have 900,000 units doesn't mean, Northern California has 50,000 units. Some markets have 12,000 units that are growing. We're around. We have dedicated resources in each of those markets that are there for the client. The other thing that always comes up is, well, gosh, you have such a big presence in the market. You're managing for all of our competitors. What's going to be different for us? And with size comes strength and resources. Many times we will have a market where we'll have 3 marketing associates touching real estate there. We'll have 6 regional managers. That one person that's touching your real estate is not necessarily touching your competitive set, but the knowledge that we have on how the market's moving, what trends are happening in macro markets and micro markets, knowledge is king. Knowledge is valuable. So if you have that at your disposal, it allows you to give better advice on the direction of an asset is going to go. But listen, property management isn't rocket science. I'm not sending someone to Mars, right? I don't have to worry about that. I think about when I first started in the industry, it's still people, product, price, and promotion, right? Maybe technology is getting in the way of some of those, but for the most part, the basics get you to the finish line. And sometimes I think we lose sight of that. But property management is a difficult and challenging business, but it is not one that I don't need a Harvard degree to be uber successful, right? Now, I did go to the Harvard of the South, or so we thought, but you can climb the ladder pretty darn high by just going through and touching the different components of the real estate.
I really like what you said about Bob wanting you all to be the Apple of real estate and how active he is and the team is. How are you thinking? I mean, you spoke at NAA, a lot of folks from your team and Gardner and others spoke there. Maybe what were some takeaways or some shares around technology and some of the things you're thinking about that you maybe grasped at NAA? Like you said, there's kind of infinite things to talk about, but maybe what were some of your key things that you think were important from NAA?
That's a great question. I mean, I didn't get to attend as many sessions as I wanted to, but my role has also changed, right? My intent on attending conferences when I was an operator was to learn trends and hear experiences from others. And the beauty of NAA is we're all together, whether you're competitors, whether you're suppliers, talking about industry events and bumping into people that you don't know, and you get to experience a little bit of their perspective. For me, it's more about relationships at this point, because I'm looking at what is going to help Greystar continue to deliver great results, regardless of the market. So, NMHC is great for owners and asset managers. NAA is really an operators conference. I like talking to the suppliers because the suppliers are the ones that keep me grounded. They're talking to zillions of clients that I've never even heard of. So understanding from their perspective. In fact, when I took my role a year and a half ago, a lot of our supplier partners were calling, said, hey, how's cold calling going? Like I know people on the West Coast. I can pick up the phone and generally they'll answer, or I'm certainly answering. But I can't necessarily do that to companies on the East Coast, the Midwest, Southeast. For me, now it's shaking hands, kissing babies, and leaning on people that I trust for introductions to relationships, whether that's regional leaders within Greystar or it's like you two gentlemen. And really the benefit of those relationships are tenfold and paramount to success. So I really like the Apartment All-Stars session. I think they always bring great energy and they drive home basics that so much stuff going on the properties, and we've loaded so many tasks onto the expectations of what a leasing consultant does and an assistant manager or property manager that sometimes you forget the fun basics, and they certainly know how to deliver it. I think AI is interesting. It's still, people use AI, but I don't know if they're using it the correct way. And I walked around the trade show and a lot of people had AI on their displays, but they really couldn't tell what the AI component was or what problem it was really solving. So it's kind of like smart apartments from a couple of years ago. It's there. We're going to progress, but how we use it and how we use it effectively, we'll see. But I don't know. I wish I saw more. I get more out of NAA with the dinners, the interactions, the social aspects, because that's where you really get the information on what's happening in the industry, what trends people are seeing, and just who's doing what and how they're doing. That's what I get out of NAA.
Were you in the session with Gardner, Stephanie, and Lane?
No, but
that was fun because they purposefully, as good of friends as they are, they purposefully made it interesting by debating each other. So, that relationship.
I mean, those three have very different perspectives, right? And I know them all. So I wish I would have attended that one, but no, there were some great ones. It always is funny because everyone goes, gosh, you're just going to concerts or you're going to dinners. And I think it's funny. And you need that to kind of fill your bucket, right? Those are fun events that you get to do to interact, but there's still work going on, whether you're at that event or work needs to get done before it. But to see different perspectives and people collaborate or debate, or the viewpoints that you get to see in a non-hostile environment, it's pretty eye-opening and fun.
I know that you're obviously, through the nature of your current job, you're not involved in operations anymore per se, like on a day-to-day operations. But then there's a lot that's going on in the industry, and through the nature of your job, you need to know what's happening in operations so you could be representing the company in conversations with potential clients. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for operators in 2024 and beyond for property management companies?
Centralization is on the tip of the tongue for many, and figuring out how to do that well. I think it's interesting. Some of the REITs have centralized functions for a long time, and that's easier to do when you have one master, you have one owner, one directive. When you have 3,600 clients and the third party side of the business, everyone has their own idea on how they do things. It gets a little bit more challenging, but at the end of the day, if it's going to make operations more efficient, if we're going to deliver a better product, if it's going to add dollars to the bottom line, there isn't an owner in the industry that is not aligned with those goals. It's just a matter of how you accomplish them. Centralization is going to happen. We just got to figure out how to make technology work where it's not delivering a lesser product to the residents and doesn't take away from the personalization of the business that we're in, which we're still taking care of residents, whether they want to talk to us through chat, through text messages or emails. I always loved when I was on site, the residents that would come in and just want to talk a little bit. We're all busy. We're always busy. You have your residents that come in and they just like to be around. And sometimes it's nice to hear that you're doing a good job versus people coming in and just talking about work orders that need to be done or what we've done wrong, right? I remember when I was doing a lease up in Park City, I never really ate fish as a kid, and I certainly wasn't eating sushi. But the owner of the sushi restaurant on Main Street lived at my property. He would come in at like 7:30 in the morning, and I would be in early before he would go down to get the fresh fish at Salt Lake Airport. He kept asking me, why don't you come in? I'm like, I just don't eat fish. And he's like, just come in. We'll always have a place. And his place was always crowded. But I kind of felt like a skinny Norm from Cheers, because I would go in and he'd make room at the sushi bar. And he would just start me off. I never ordered anything, but he just would start me off with cook stuff, little things. And it would just continue to progress. Those things, those relationships, we can't lose sight of that. We can centralize all we want, but there's still going to be a face-to-face factor. Those interactions create the soul of a community. And we just can't lose that on the trajectory of where we're going to try to maximize profits and streamline processes.
And now a word from Dean Fungawing, founder and CEO, Kairos.
So we look at freeze protection packages. We're looking at both shutoff valves that are rated by NFPA. I believe we're one of the only ones in the country that have this solution right now. And it is specifically designed for fire suppression systems. And then you've got not only leak detection in the fire protection package, but you also have the temperature monitoring. So you can see the ambient temperature, you can see pipe temperatures. You can then use this data to avoid having pipes bust in the middle of winter with you have these cold snaps. What you're going to see in this country is that more and more of the climate, as that polar vortex pushes further south, you're going to see more and more extreme cold weather in the wintertime in Texas, in Georgia, in northern Florida. You're going to see more and more cold weather. It's going to get normal. And if you're not prepared with a solution, you're going to be surprised by this. You will have large insurance claims. You'll have residents that are going to have to get kicked out in the middle of the night when it gets really cold. This is a problem. You can also, our system is also designed to notify your local fire department to let them know, hey, we've detected a freeze condition. We're going on fire watch, so that you're in compliance with local safety regulations. You can notify the alarm company in case you need to bypass the flow switch. All of this can be put together in a package that allows you to provide protection.
Interesting you say that because, so many people talk about the move to a remote, working completely off the grid. This business continues, and I think will continue to be for a very long time, as much as we move to centralization and in real life business, right?
Well, and that's interesting that you mentioned that, because, the pandemic changed a lot of perceptions on, do you need to be in the office? The emergence of Teams and Zoom, FaceTime even, right? For a lot of people, that showed that we could be as efficient and get work done without having to sit in the car for 2 hours. I live 2 hours away from our corporate office. I have been virtual for 20 years now. God bless being able to do these Teams meetings or LinkedIn Live or any of the mediums that we can use in order to communicate and see each other's facial reactions, which I think are incredibly important. But the work environment is changing. But people have been working virtually. You just didn't see them. You were talking to them for a really long time. So I like the fact that it's allowing people to have hopefully better work-life balance and to be able to do a job successfully without having to be in an office. Because we're property management. If we're not on property or walking job sites or meeting with clients face to face, you lose the magic of relationship building and figuring things out collaboratively. So this is great that we're doing this. We can reach many, many more people and have quicker meetings and dialogue and make decisions, but nothing replaces face-to-face interaction. Just doesn't.
Yeah, I love it. Well, you have kids. I think you've been mentoring a lot of folks, sharing a lot of wisdom. You've seen a lot. I think all three of us have been through acquisitions and cycles. What advice would you give to someone, whether it's starting their career or maybe thinking about a change in their career right now?
Well, gosh, change in career is probably, I'm not the right person to talk to. I've taken different roles, but I certainly haven't hopped from company to company. I think be collaborative, be open to differing opinions, get in the game, like have a voice. I said that earlier. You have to find your voice. So be vocal, but don't be vocal for just the sake of talking. Have something that's meaningful that you can add to the conversation. You always have to perform in jobs, and you have to do something you like. And if you don't love what you're doing, love the people that you're doing it with, because that is as gratifying sometimes as the job that you have. I stumbled into this role. So you might think you're going to be a veterinarian or a doctor or the greatest real estate agent in the state. But sometimes it just doesn't play that way. I thought I'd be in marine science riding Shamu, and that didn't happen. My career experiences went a different route. Be open to change. And when you find something that you love doing, you hold on tight, because right now I get to blend some really hard work, impactful work. I mean, people living in our communities, we have them 24/7. There's nothing more impactful than the job that we do and the impact on the residents living in our buildings, or on the owners that are hiring us that we're managing their assets for. My role, I get to have personal relationship development. I'm very analytical when I need to be, but if I'm going to be analytical, I have to have that social balance. And that's why I'll get my work done, but I like doing dinners. I like attending events with clients to get to know them. I like doing that with our operators. In downtown LA, there's a core of managers and regional managers that, God bless them, they always invite me to events. And God bless the suppliers that are hosting some of them, because it keeps me connected to the people that are making magic happen on the properties. And if you ever lose touch with those people that are on the front lines or the suppliers that are helping us perform, then you lose your ability to be effective. Get in the game, be social, work hard, and make sure you have a voice. Be known. My daughter's at San Diego State, and one of the professors during the first week of school were talking to the parents about what their kids are going to experience. A student came up to him at the end of the semester and asked for a recommendation. And the professor had never spoken to that student, but the student had attended every class, but just didn't participate, wasn't seen amongst an auditorium of students. The professor couldn't give that person a reference. He didn't really know them. I guess I related to that. A lot of people in business think that it's who you know that allows you to succeed. The truth is, it's who knows you. So how do you become known? How do you become visible that allows for success in this industry? That was an interesting perspective from a professor that probably never really thought of that, but it makes sense. Be visible.
One of our guests on Tuesday said that exact line, and that was Bob Knackle.
Yeah.
So he's someone we'll have to connect you to. But
Richard, I want to go and pick a question from the audience. Adilson Ramos is asking, what difficult challenge in your career has shaped you into the person you are now?
It's funny how your personal life affects your work environment and your work life. Young in my career, I was probably immature. I was very transactional. Like, this is the work we have to do. We got to get this done. These are the tasks. It was more robotic. It wasn't necessarily coming from an understanding, compassionate position. When Elle was born, and Elle's my daughter, it kind of opens your eyes to, okay, you learn how to become selfless and you learn how to deliver results for others because they're dependent on you. And I think as I've gone through my career, I've certainly matured. The property managers that worked for me when I was first a regional, Misty McElwee, Jill Renfro, Aisha Blevins, God bless those ladies, because those are strong women, because they put up with an immature, hard charging person that thought he was doing the right thing. And probably for the business wise, I was driving results, but I was killing people as you're driving them. So to be able to take a step back, and when Elle was born, and figuring out how to become selfless and what things matter, I'm balancing personal life and work life, and things get in the way of trying to get your job done. So becoming compassionate and understanding and broadening my perspective on the job at hand versus how those people get it done and what's impacting them has been meaningful, at least in my growth, and probably dictates how I approach in my collaborative nature with people when I'm trying to get my job done. And even, Chris, probably our interactions, right? I mean, people go through, there's plenty of suppliers and industry peers that are just, they're all business. They're focused on their perspective. And you go through your career with blinders on to everything else that is happening around you. And I've just learned, 30 years in this business now, that smell the roses. And I might not be able to tell you who is in my role at other competing companies or other groups. But if I come across them, I'll certainly say hello and be cordial and take an interest in what they're doing, because the business is big enough for all of us. That's for sure.
that hits home for me, because early in my first couple of years, I was very much so that way, and had some great mentorship, people who took me under their wing, gave me some feedback. but I became close and friendly, very friendly with Lori, Torres, Georgiana, especially in the package space. I was very friendly to other people and cordial, and even helped people get jobs once they left those companies. So,
and I think Stephanie Furman had a discussion with me one time, and in her role on what she's done, and she's done a number of different roles, she kind of always talked to competitors and always had kind of a personal board of directors that could very well be Sue Ansel or other folks that we compete on a business nature, but professionally, it's amazing when you ask questions, how many people will engage with you when you come from it from a genuine perspective on your approach. So that's the best thing about our business. It's the relationship side of what we get to do and who we get to interact with every day.
So I love how you're sharing about, the relationships, what Adrian just asked, in terms of culture and how you think about culture. A lot of people use that word, just like AI. People talk about culture every day and say they have great cultures, and then you see them do crazy things. How do you think about culture? How do you live by example? And maybe that might even tie in a little bit to leadership.
Culture is important. It certainly is, as I'm looking at companies to potentially partner with or work with, right? There has to be some compatibility, the vision of the company, who those leaders are, in the people that are driving the business, whether it be at a regional level or on site. Culture is very key, because if you don't have alignment on the people space in a business transaction or running a business, it causes points of friction. And if you're not culturally compatible, it's hard to be aligned on direction or goals or how to get from point A to point B.
There's a reason why you're still at Greystar after all these years. There's a reason why Gardner's still there and Michael's still there and all these people are still there. So I'm curious to hear, maybe some people who've made that impact, like you said about Stephanie and others, around culture, maybe some examples of things you've done.
Well, I want to be around people that care about people, and investing in culture and building a culture and building a personality of an organization. And it could be wide ranging, that personality. It doesn't have to just fit into one circle or one square. What I love about Greystar, and I've been with Greystar so that acquisition happened 10 years ago, I think 10 or 11 years ago. The company has evolved, but each year we continue to focus on listening to resident surveys, listening to employee surveys, focusing on what is the work environment and the health of our associates has continued to inch up importance on initiatives that we interact or that we, changes to, whether it's our medical plan or the work environment or employee discounts. Those things all matter. And it's true. If you have a work environment where people are allowed to be unique, they're allowed to have a voice, they're allowed to care for one another, they're happy to come to the environment that you're providing for them to work in. And those change, right? Not every property is the same. Not every role you do, not every corporate office you go into, or if you work virtually. But at the forefront of decisions, high up on that list, is always employee and associate satisfaction. That attracts talent, high quality individuals. And when you surround yourself with talent and high quality individuals, it's a pretty good environment to be in.
You had an amazing career. Just looking through the comments that I'm seeing in the comment boxes, of all of your coworkers or colleagues that are saying how amazing you are as a person, as a professional. What are some top lessons that you learned along the way that you want to share with those that are looking up to you or to someone in your position and they aspire to be like you one day?
Don't be closed-minded. Everyone's opinion, there's merit to each opinion. Don't be singularly focused. Open your eyes. Look at different perspectives and viewpoints as you go through your career, right? I think about when I was on site, and I think about supplier relationships that I have now. And some of the best relationships I have started with business, and I've been able to walk a line between personal and business. And many of those business relationships are now close, dear personal friends, both clients and suppliers. But I look back when I was a property manager and I think about all the times the supplier would come in with a box of donuts or something. And it was never scheduled. They would just pop in. And I'm like, I don't have time for this. I didn't focus on it because I was transactional focused. I was like, I got to get through these 10 items today. I don't have time for this. Or who my competitors were that I didn't even know who they were. I just didn't take that time to enhance what my experience was, because interacting with all those people were really only going to make me better. Whether you steal things that you like about how they do, or you learn lessons on how you're not going to follow in their footsteps or do things differently from how they did, the data points in the perspective that you get just rounds you better.
Awesome. I like the story shares there. And I'm kind of curious about, when you talked about mentorship and the people like the board of advisors, is there someone maybe early in your life, whether it's a family member or someone you want to call out who's made an impact on you? Maybe there's a story or something you always go back to. As I raise my kids, hearing, I think one of the things I can take away from these sessions is like insightful nuggets that I can share with my kids in my personal life, as I'm teaching them about trust and humility and vulnerability and things like that. So anything you've learned, whether it's personal or family related, or even it can be work related too.
Well, there's probably some shout outs, right? I think mentors are important, and much of who you become is based upon where you started. I mean, I think about my relationship with my parents today. I love them to death. I mean, and I live in California, so I'm always on social media. So my family, which none of them live in California, we get to interact and they get to see what Elle and I are doing, right? They gave me the foundation to be successful today. And the same thing happens with work, right? I think about one of my first regional managers. His name was Tom Capolino with R&B Apartment Management. Tom's on the East Coast now, but he taught me be accurate, shoot straight, don't make up stories if they're not true, right? He demanded results. He was pretty analytical. It was all manual at the time. We were faxing weekly reports and nothing was really automated. And I remember he would get reports and it was blistering sometimes when people couldn't add correctly. And he's just like, do you know what a calculator is? I know you know how to use one. You need to use it before you send these reports in, right? But he taught me to be thorough and double check work. I think about Christine Hansen, and now it's Christine Ross, who really brought me to Trammell Crow Residential Services. And that's really where my career really started to take off. But she was compassionate and she cared and she was smart, but she added humor to the day. There was always levity in how she approached things. Troy Montgomery with Trammell Crow Residential Services, she was a rock star. She was detailed. She knew how to deal with owners and people. Gail Duke you just wanted to do well for her. She was so fun and lively and cared about you. The numbers were important, but it was more about how are you doing? And the same thing with clients. Then I think about today. I mean, I'm in a sales type role. Stephanie Furman would say you're more of a consultant than a salesperson, but let's face it, business development is what it is. Mike Cloud gives me the leash to run and do things the way I want to do them and to have the interactions that I want. And he allows me to fill my bucket while still getting my job done. I think about Mike Dow, who showed me how to be not how to entertain, but how to focus on the client relation. I think about Walt Smith and in my days at Riverstone, and they were relationship driven. It's like you can be producing all you want, but if the client doesn't like hanging out with you or doesn't like interacting with you, you're not really going to grow the business. I didn't get that until well into my career with Riverstone. I look at Terry Danner and he keeps selling companies and making them successful, and he's become a good personal friend. But I have all these points of interest of people that have helped shape how I look at the business today. And you get something from every one of them. And hopefully at the same time, you can ultimately give as well. That's why I think mentoring, having people that you can lean on and talk to, whether it's another property manager. I remember early in my career, there was a group of 6 assistant managers, and we would all get together for Melrose Place on Monday nights, right? And it was just like, we don't always get that. We worry about our properties, but we don't always remember the interactions that are outside of our specific work function. Those were memorable, and those just made for big impacts. But so many people that you can talk to and rely on, but at the same time, you need to give as well. So as much as you get, I think you have to be able to promote people. So what do you say about people when they're not in the room? How do you help someone? How do you focus? How do you give them a hand to point them in the right direction, or maybe vouch for them? Say this person is worth a shot, or you really need to look at this. You get those through trusting the people that you interact with, in forming tight bonds. That's kind of, I'm in that stage of my career where I'd like to pay back a little bit more for some amazing wealth that I've been given in this industry.
We're only around for a limited period of time. Some will argue for a short period of time. I want to ask you, how would you like to be remembered? What would you like your legacy to be?
Well, gosh, that's really rough, because someone asked me the other day. So I'll be 54 in August, 30 years in the business, love what I do. I could see myself working another 15 plus years. I mean, shoot, if I could be Stacey Hunt, I'd be in heaven. I don't really think about legacy. I mean, I deliver results. I say what I'm going to do and I do it, but I do it collaboratively. And you can be a lone wolf. You can do things on your own, but gosh, the joy that you get when you are part of a team and you achieve success, or you conquer something that you didn't think could be conquered, the ability to share that with others collectively is off the charts. I don't know my legacy. My legacy is still yet to be written. I still got some big things ahead of me. So if you have me on in another couple of years and you're still doing this, then maybe we'll talk about, like, I'm too young in my career to talk about legacy.
Fair enough.
Regardless of my gray hairs, that just happens.
We as guests, they're way younger than you are too. I want to see perspective. I think it's also depending, like you said, of the age, where you see yourself in life, regardless of your physical age. And some will have like similar answers, some will have like very different answers. It's just fascinating to me.
Well, the beauty of what I do, like I said, though, is I have the greatest job in the world. I get to work with great people. I get to interact with many, many people. In fact, I'm probably interacting with more than I thought, because I'm running strategic partnerships, and I joke about this, but I will get calls from toilet seat manufacturers, water heater groups, AI products. Everyone wants to have a strategic partnership with Greystar. And I try, for the longest time, I didn't even pay attention to LinkedIn. And now I'm regretting that, because no one pays attention to my LinkedIn messages. But I always try to respond going, listen, I'd love that too. This is my purview, but maybe I can help put you in touch with this person. So NAA killed me, though, because I think I have 1,000 emails in my inbox from different suppliers that were there that are showing their product or how they could help us. But it's kind of funny how that works.
When you've had an immense amount of people who, funny enough, as you say that your posts on LinkedIn don't go that far, just let us know. We'll help. We can get maybe some other folks out there. But the responses in the comments, while you've been talking, we've been going there for the questions, and the amount of people just saying how great you are and talking about you behind your back, or, without how they're talking about you when you're not in the room per se, is just awesome. So we're seeing a lot of great comments here, some good questions I think people are asking. But a lot of people I think you've worked with over the years, other people on your team and other people who aren't on your team. So I think that's to Adrian's point about legacy. I'm learning a lot about legacy from other people. And to your point about Stacey, amazing. And Mike Lau, who is pivotal in my role in NAA and getting involved in more leadership and learning. I think one of the things you talked about, and it kind of hit me pretty hard, I think I'm starting to realize it more and more, is like what people are doing for you, not only saying about you, but how are people advocating for you when you ask someone for something and you are intentional, and then they're actually, you don't know the hard work that has to go into you getting that role or getting that promotion or getting that leadership position. And you never see how hard they are fighting for you. I love what you said about advocating for others, paying it forward to others. And you're obviously doing that. And you've made a big impact on my life. So thank you. I thought you were 10 years younger than me, man. So you carry that energy so well. You have that
listen,
California sun.
Well, my daughter turned 21 last week, and I think she is making me young, and we have a great relationship, but she's gotten me into this country kick, and I've been to like 5 country concerts recently. And I don't know. I'm all about memories. At this point, just document and go after things and don't say no, because life goes way too fast. And for me to think that I have a 21-year-old daughter is crazy. But listen, she still wants to do things with me. We're still going to tear it up. I still get to go on trips with industry people. Sometimes hard to balance work and personal life, but just get joy out of every aspect of your life that you can, because it certainly ends sometimes for some way too quickly. So soak it up and tear it up.
Richard, thank you for being here with us today. Amazing conversation. Truly enjoyed. What are some final thoughts that you would like to share with our audience?
I think have fun at what you do, be visible, be loud, and pay it back. Just people all catch breaks, and sometimes you make your own breaks, right? But acknowledge the people around you that help you get to where you are and celebrate with them. Keep charging forward. Have fun while you do it.
Chris, any final thoughts?
Oh, this has been amazing. If you haven't met Richard, meeting him in person is great. And if you're an owner on the East Coast or anywhere in the country, Richard is a great person to talk to and get to know. So appreciate your time, Richard, and spending it with us.
Yeah, appreciate it. It was a blast.
Thank you all for being with us today on a live event, another great episode of the Multifamily Hangout. I want to thank our sponsors from Kairos and Coastal Painting Contractors for making this broadcast possible. We will see you again on July 11. We have another amazing guest. Her name is Tina West. We can't wait to see you guys. Welcome, Tina, to the Multifamily Hangout. We look forward to see you here. Have a happy, amazing 4th of July, and have an amazing afternoon. Take care.